Sinking City was one of my most anticipated games for 2019. Announced in 2016, but was just released the last week of this June after several delays. Heavily inspired by the short stories of H.P. Lovecraft, you'll play as a troubled detective investigating the origin of your visions in the city of Oakmont. Though the Sinking City shares some of the same source material with games like Dark Corners of the Earth and Eternal Darkness, it approaches it in a very, very different manner. Usually, Lovecraft-adapted video games try and capture many of the underlying themes of the stories in addition to the imagery and narrative itself. These games are generally story-focused and linear. Gameplay consists of some type of investigation or puzzle solving intermingled with action, and an insanity mechanic is a staple. The Sinking City hits most of these with some pretty key exceptions. The Sinking City lacks subtlety. It knows you're here for the main course, and it's going to serve you helping after helping of its tentacled goodness. This is a pretty bold move considering most H.P. Lovecraft stories are more about the creeping horror and existential dread than the monster or horror sting itself. You'll realize this pretty early on, as one of the first NPCs you speak to is a straight-up monkey man. The sprawling city itself looks like it was hit by a Cthulhu bomb, as most parts of the city are in this post-apocalyptic state. If this game didn't remind me every so often that this takes place in America, I would probably forget that this was even supposed to represent our reality. Monkey men, fish people, flooded streets, roaming monstrosities, and magical artifacts are just some of the common sights you'll encounter. The strangest part of it all, though, is how casual everyone is. Nobody seems to find any of these things strange or out of place. Even the main character, who is supposedly a newcomer to Oakmont. He's just sort of like, oh, monsters? Yeah, okay, I'll shoot them, I guess. You're touched by the sea, and that makes you into a hideous fish monster? Yeah, alright, that makes sense, sure. It's pretty jarring watching the protagonist take all these bizarre things at face value and just roll with it. It's goofy, but it's a good thing, and it kinda works. The whole game has this air of absurdity to it. Several inner monologue descriptions of the environment are just straight-up attempts at comedy. Some side quests and NPC interactions will also have you smiling at the sheer ridiculousness of it all. There's even a bit of slapstick with the poor controls of the boat. Don't get me wrong, though. For the most part, the Sinking City takes itself and its source material seriously. Though it departs narratively from other games like it, the Sinking City falls right in line gameplay-wise with other Cthulhu Mythos games. Around the semi-open world city, there are several main and side cases to work. These will have you investigating crime scenes, questioning NPCs, searching records, and fighting enemies. While this is your main meat of the game, it kind of feels like the developers designed it in a backwards way. Think of it this way. Designing a game is kind of like designing a car. You have your engine, which would be your primary gameplay loop. That's what you're doing on a second-to-second or a minute-by-minute basis. In Super Mario World, this would be running and jumping. You have your wheels and your headlights and your wipers, which would be your secondary gameplay loop. This is what you're doing on an hour-to-hour basis and largely relies on the primary gameplay loop to work. In Super Mario World, this would be completing levels and advancing the map. Lastly, we have the body of the car, what it looks like and how it feels, the vibe it gives off, and its style. This is the whole game's setting and atmosphere and its expansive narrative. Big picture kind of stuff. Generally, you're going to want to design the engine before you start putting together the shape of the car. If you design the body first, that means the engine and the headlights and any other innards are going to have to conform themselves to fit, compromising their original shape or design in the process. Unfortunately, with the Sinking City, this feels like the case. They came up with this big idea of an open-world Cthulhu city before they actually had any idea what you would do in it. They wanted the player to spend several hours solving mysteries, but didn't come up with exactly how you would do that first. In the end, what we got is kind of a grab bag of half-baked gameplay mechanics. There's a boat to navigate the flooded streets, but it controls like a dirt bike on an ice rink. There's combat, but it's about as deep as a puddle. It's little more than pointing your gun and pressing the shoot button over and over. No cover, no bullet time, no way to avoid damage. There are conversation trees and choices, but they don't really matter in any other major way than quest rewards and crafting material. I find that a lot of players today are fixated on that big idea. They're sold on that elevator pitch, which rarely includes the primary gameplay loop. The Sinking City's gameplay feels shaky and unfocused. It tries to do a lot, but masters none of it. I'm not saying the Sinking City is boring, or its minute-to-minute gameplay is bad. Like many indie games, it's very ambitious and tries to punch well above its studio's budget and its team's experience. This is especially evident in the technical difficulties the game has. Some are excusable or don't bother me so much, like random loading screens or NPCs animating in strange and bizarre ways. Some technical hiccups really bother me though, like the game freezing for a solid 25 seconds when I pull up the map, which happens so very often. In the end, I liked my time with the Sinking City. It was goofy and fun at times, and tense at others. Though it is a Cthulhu Mythos game, I wouldn't exactly call it scary or a horror game at all. It's more of a straight-up adventure game than it is anything else. I find it hard to come up with a blender pitch for this game because in many ways it is very unique. There's something for everyone in here, and I don't doubt that if you're an H.P. Lovecraft enthusiast, you'll at least enjoy the sightseeing tour that the game is. I can't call it the best Cthulhu game in the past year or so, but it was pretty good.